Hi. Hello, filmmakers. Happy Monday. Here I am, ready for another session of Filmmaker to Filmmaker. Today is President's Day. I don't know if you celebrate that where you are. It's kind of one of those funny holidays, I think. But we are here. It's a very cold day in Denver. It's snowing outside. It's the thick of winter. So it's nice to be inside and cozy right now. Today's Filmmaker to Filmmaker, I wanted to answer a question from a filmmaker who wrote to me last week. And he wrote just such an interesting email. I'm going to read you a bunch of it. I'm going to read you a part of it because I think it could be helpful for a lot of you. And just interesting. There's a lot of thoughts. A lot of thoughts came up for me. And I just want to thank this filmmaker so much for writing to me and sharing his thoughts, because I just have this thing: the more that we share our thoughts, the more that we help each other, and the more that we help each other, the stronger we all get, and the stronger we all get, the better the world is. The more movies we make, it's win-win-win. But I just really wanted to thank him for sharing this. It's very honest, and I wanted to share it because I think it might ring bells for some of you out there. He wrote, "You're right, filmmaking is very hard." And I'm reading this from my laptop over here. "If it's not the exterior challenges of financing, egos, lack of support, it's the interior battles we're facing. False beliefs, insecurity, victim mentality, and or plain old fear. I'm dealing with it all right now." And I just wanted to give you a big virtual hug when I read that. Currently, what's hindering me is money. Ah, yes, I don't have a small budget either. By big movie studio or even mid-sized productions, it's small, but for first-time feature director, it's large, $1.8 million. And everything that has been itemized and carefully thought out. Maybe my issue is I need to go bigger. Maybe secretly I don't believe I can get the financing. Maybe I'm self-sabotaging myself without knowing it. But the one thing I've realized is that I'm chasing people. I'm experiencing the fox and the hound syndrome, or simply put, symptoms of everyday relationships, as I work on committing myself to daily actions and people I've noticed that haven't received that in return. Okay, so, and he goes on to say, the one thing I'm on razor's edge with, though, is my patience. He says, after spending 4.5 years rewriting and the last 2 years in development, I'm beginning to struggle every day with my own motivations and purpose. And this is one of the really tough things for filmmakers, I think, is sustaining our excitement and our passion over many, many years. Hey, I've got some people joining. Just want to say hi. One of the really big challenges that we all face is maintaining our passion and excitement over years while we're in development with things when they're not happening, and it's not easy, and sometimes for different reasons. So let's dive into this filmmaker's issues and see if we can find, if not solutions, at least some new ways of thinking about it, and some new ways of approaching the situation. The first thing that I have to say is when I read this, I just went, I got those little pings where I went, currently what's hindering me is money, maybe I secretly don't believe I can get the financing. I'm on the razor's edge with my patience. I'm reading all this and I'm going, look, and I've said this before, but a desperate mindset, when we start to get into headspace of like that, like we feel like we're fighting, we're pushing, we're trying to make it happen and it's not happening. Sometimes the best thing we can do is step back. Sometimes and it's kind of counterintuitive. We feel like we've got to push more. But actually, sometimes the strongest, most powerful thing you can do is take a step back. And I often think of it, if you imagine you're trying to get across a wall, you're trying to get through a wall. You want to make a movie, you've come to this obstacle, this wall here, and you're figuring out how to get through it or past it. And you've chosen one place and you're just banging on it. You're banging really hard and it's not opening, right? And there comes a point, you keep banging. Now, at this point, you're just hurting your own head. That door is not opening, And the smartest thing you can do at this point, in my opinion, is step way back, recenter yourself and look at the wall, and you might find that there's a door right over there that you just hadn't considered, or right there, or a tunnel, or a way over, or there's like a little biplane that you could jump on to get over it. There's so many ways through that wall. But when we get fixated, that it's like, okay, this way, right? I need this money, I need this, and we're just pushing at that. It can sometimes get really, really tough, and it's not going to happen. It's like the more that we push, the more resistance there is to it. So it's finding that balance, finding the space, like actually to look. Yay, tech issues. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. A whole bunch of people came on and then I pressed a button and I don't know what I did. I am so not techie. And this is the first time this week that I've got this, I have the phone on a little tripod. I'm such a not techie person. This should give hope to filmmakers everywhere. I will say, like, you don't have to be technological to make movies. It's really a big thing. Hey, so I was well into this chatting to this filmmaker, or helping this filmmaker. So the first piece of advice I have is just if you can step back and try to get a different perspective on things. I think that's really, really invaluable instead of just trying to keep pushing the same thing. The second thing that I want to say is, like, basically you have now, there's two main options, right? One of them is obviously that you keep focusing on this project. And I'm not going to tell you which option to take or what is the right thing for you to do, because only you ever know what is the right thing to do. And you have to trust your inner guidance and your intuition. But I'm going to throw a bunch of ideas out at you. And if any of these speak to you, if anything lands, great. And if it doesn't, no problem there. You haven't lost anything. But as I see it, you have two options. And the first is that you keep focusing on this project. And if you do that, there's a couple things that I suggest. First of all, you do need to reconnect big time with your why and with your own motivations and purpose, and that's really important, because when you say that you're beginning to struggle with it, and I understand that. Weird thing, because I've gone through this. There was one movie that I wrote that I just loved. It came very close to getting made, and then it fell apart for various reasons. My husband still, like, it's his favorite movie that I've ever written. He's always like, why don't you go back to that? And I'm just like, it had its time. And I think this is the weird thing. Sometimes they take so long to get off the ground, but we've moved on as artists and people. Like, what I want to make today isn't what I wanted to make 5 years ago. And it's certainly not what I wanted to make 10 years ago, And so it's okay to sort of go, like, maybe this isn't for me anymore. Like, if I can't find the motivation and purpose in it now, if I'm not obsessed with it, maybe it's time to move on. Okay. And if you're not, though, if you are like, no, I still really feel this, I still really want to do this, then keep on keeping on with it. But reconnect with that in a strong way and make sure you do still really, really want to make this now, and that you're not just like still chasing a dream that was a dream years ago. If it is something you want to make now, here's just some practical things, practical bits of advice that I would have for you. One, with a project with this kind of budget, $1.8 million, I would really encourage you, and you've said that you are having trouble getting casting, like talent. I would strongly encourage you, and I don't know if you've done this, but you could try and get a casting director on board. And a good one is going to cost at least $10,000, and there's no point in getting a not a good one, right? You need somebody who's really, really like connected and can open doors for you. But if you find the right casting director, and as I say, you would expect to pay $10,000 or $20,000, I think that is money well worth spent if it actually means connecting with cast and finding people who are good for your project. So consider that. Now you might go, I don't have that money, and I would totally understand it. In which case I would suggest crowdfunding for development money. And this can be a good thing anyway for this kind of, like, if you're trying to make a bigger project, and, even if it's just money for you to actually live on while you're like devoting time to developing it, whether it's money that could fund you going to a film market like American Film Market in November or something, strategically thinking about that and thinking, okay, like if I wanted to go to AFM, how much would I need? What would that cost me? Like what, and start planning it now. I know it seems crazy, or if it's Cannes or whatever, all the different film markets that go on in the year, because those might be places for you that you could find that kind of finance, and it would be, in any case, I go with this kind of project, like you just get access to so many different producers, you meet so many people. So it's really worth considering whether you want to just like get yourself to one of those, and if you need to raise some money for that. And as I say, it might be worth considering just raising some development money, some seed money, if you haven't done it already, and investing that in ways to actually really make it happen, i.e. hiring a casting director or going to film markets, and getting your materials in order to do that. Now, another thing that I thought, if you haven't done this already, and I suspect you have, but you talk about like, maybe I need to go bigger, Like my thing is just, list comparable films. Like the budget you have, you say, is really solid. You've gone through everything. It's like every line makes sense. You know, like an idea that I had was just like, think about like what is this film that you're making, and what do you think are the best comparisons to it? What would you like it to be? Make those lists, and they might be at different budget levels. Do the research, see what they are. You know, and if they, you know, if you like say, actually my movie is really like, and they're all $5 million movies, right? You know, that's worth considering. You know, I'll never be always like, you have to go smaller. You don't have to go smaller. You know, like you could go bigger. And so like make your list. The important thing is that you feel totally aligned with the amount of money you're seeking. You know, that you feel in your bones like totally great about it. You know, because if you're sort of feeling like you are overreaching, or that it's like, ooh, intimidating and scary, you know, it might not be the best thing. If you feel like, okay, it is like a reach for me and it's scary, like making this movie will be scary, but I feel like I can control that, like I get it, I'll handle that kind of money, then that's where you want to be. But make that list of comparable films and really research them. And I urge you to do it not just in terms of how much money they were made for, but also who made them. Who are the producers, right? You know, what are the production companies? And you might have done this already, but it might just spur something new in you, you know? And how do I get to those people and can, you know, contact them about my movie? You know, who would be my dream people to work with on this, and how can I get to them? And I think actually a really good place often to start with is producers, you know, and as well as production companies. But producers, you know, who's making this kind of movie at this kind of budget level, and how do I get to them, and what will impress them? You know, what will sell them on this? Now, another idea that I had, and this is still just with the idea of pushing forward with this movie, is creating a concept trailer for it. And you might have done this already. You certainly have a ton of experience in filmmaking. But I have found like creating a concept trailer can really be just something that elevates a project and takes it beyond, you know? And it might just be for you even just to really figure out like, what does this film look like? What is the feeling of it? And can you make something? And it's a proof of concept. You know, because when you're trying to ask someone to give you that amount of money and say, I can do this and I'll deliver an amazing film, like something that can be really compelling is if you can show them, you know, some evidence that you really can do that. I don't know what your shorts have been, and maybe your shorts already totally cover that. But I would consider, you know, I would definitely consider making a concept trailer. It's that thing, you know, I feel like the more action that you continue to take to move things forward, the better it can be. You know, like if you're just sitting there like you've got yourself into a space where you're really just waiting, you know, you're just waiting for people to respond. I go, the more that you can bring the power back to you to create things and do things and push things, you know, move things forward in that way, I feel like the better. Like that will help the mindset as well. Now, obviously, you don't have to continue. And as I said, like sometimes, you know, we've been working on a project for 4.5 years and we just sort of feel like we have to continue to work on it because because that's what we've been doing for 4.5 years. Sometimes it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something else for a while. And it doesn't mean that one is dead, and it doesn't mean you'll leave it forever. But it does mean that you just walk away from it for a while, you know? And I was thinking about, in particular, Sean Baker. I don't know if you know that filmmaker. He made The Florida Project a couple years ago. He's a great filmmaker. And The Florida Project was like his 7th movie. And I think he got like a $2.5 million budget for it. And he'd been trying to get the money to make The Florida Project for quite a while. He made a movie called Starlet. He thought that would get him, you know, enough sort of like fame or whatever that he could do it. It didn't, you know. And so he was trying to get the money for a Florida Project. Then he thought, you know what, I'm just going to go make this other little movie, shoot it on my iPhone. And he made a film called Tangerine. And that movie, you know, like did amazingly well. And the next thing you know, he's got the money to make the Florida Project. And I tell you this story because I just go, you know, sometimes the route, and this goes back to that analogy of like, you know, you've got this wall that you're trying to get through, right? Like that's basically the obstacle, right? And you've got yourself into this position where you're just banging, you found one little door or one way through, and you're like, I am gonna get through here, you know? And maybe if you step back, you'll find there's other ways to get through that. And it might even entail actually making something completely different. You know, and this might be crazy and you might just be like, oh no, don't tell me this because I just want to make this movie, you know. But I mean, I just encourage you, you're a filmmaker, make films, you know, and make them however you can. And if you can't get the $1.8 million, I mean, there's a very famous thing. I think it was from Dove Simmons, 2-Day Film School. You know, he said, how do you get $100 million to make a movie? You make a movie for $10 million. How do you make, how do you get $10 million to a movie? You make a movie for one. How do you get $1 million to make a movie? You make a movie for $100,000 that's good, you know? How do you how do you get 100,000? You make one for 10,000. You know, so you start where you are and you prove that you can do it so that people will trust you with more. You know, and maybe that's what you need to do. I'm not saying it is, because I do understand that you already have a lot of experience, and there are obviously people who do start out with, you know, much bigger budget movies. There are people, commercial directors, who start with $100 million budgets, you know. But for you, like, I just ask you to consider, is there something else you could make? You know, do you want to make something else right now? Maybe right now, like, you could just like take the gas off of this one for a minute and focus your energy into something else. And who knows? And it's just this thing of like, when we let ourselves just get into that playful, creative space again, when we're just making stuff because we want to and we just make it happen, that's when we start to feel more powerful, you know, and things flow to us and it becomes easier. When we are like frustrated, we feel like we're struggling, we feel like it's difficult, you know, it's not going to get easier. Like, that energy doesn't help us like achieve the kind of success we're looking for. So, you know, I encourage you, like, I mean, ultimately it's you're here, this is your life. And I love the fact, like, there's so much in your email to me that says your work, you've done so much mindset work, and you have so much insight, you know, about your situation and about the situation in general for filmmakers, you know, that I have total faith in you. I was like, I know you've got this. Like, I just know you've got this. Right? Do not give up, right? Do not give up as a filmmaker. I am telling you that right now, because you are going to succeed, right? You're fighting the battles and you're figuring the stuff out, and don't give up. Okay. But giving up, you know, like, you don't necessarily have to keep pushing this movie. It might be something else. Right? And I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. If you're going to keep pushing this one, find new ways to look at it. Find new ways to like think about how you can bring that together and get the people that you want. Reconnect big time with your why, you know? Find out, like, why is this movie essential? Why do I have to make this? What is this all about, you know? Reconnect with that and, like, you know, and figure it out and get some new ideas about how you can approach this battle and how you can get over that wall. But also consider that maybe getting over that wall involves making something different altogether, you know? And there's no shame in that. I think for many of us, like, because we've spent so long on a certain movie trying to get it made, we've told all our friends about it and everybody knows about it and everybody knows you're trying to get this one movie made, and suddenly then say, oh, I'm doing something else, you feel like a quitter. You haven't quit, you know? If you're still working as a filmmaker or still on that path, you have not quit, and there's no shame in it, you know? So it might be, you know, maybe there's like some fun little movie that you could do for 100,000, 150,000 that would help you just get that $1.8 million, you know, or $10 million, or who knows, $100 million. So I hope that helps to the filmmaker who wrote me this question. Feel free, as always, I will say this to anybody who I answer a question to, feel free to email me if you have other thoughts, questions about this. I hope this is helpful for other filmmakers. You know, nothing is impossible. That's the crazy thing in our industry, and it's like the beautiful thing and the difficult thing. But nothing is impossible. You know, if you really, you know, if you know that this movie will be amazing and that you need $1.8 million to get it, you know, you will get it, right? But you just have to be smart about it, and you have to be willing to think in different ways. Don't just like hone in on one source only, or one way of doing it only. Really try to just take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and figure out if there's other ways to go at it. All right. So, and once again, I hope that helps. It's so nice. It's so funny seeing all these different names of people there. Love you guys so much, and yeah, keep on and don't give up. You're gonna do this. I have total utter faith in you, and I am so excited for you. I feel like this is going to be your year, all right? So keep at it and stay in touch. Let me know how it goes. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.